Hello, welcome to this level 5 video. This is going to be one of my sort of 101 videos, a little bit of a walkthrough with some visuals, infographics, and a little bit of explanations, introductions to the field of reality, um, which is, like I said, here in level 5 in my energetic system series. Thank you so much for joining me here. I am going to try to run through this kind of quickly because I have a few um, infographics to share, and also I'm limited on my time this morning, so I'm really testing my ability to stay focused here. Thank you so much for joining me. If you are new, you could certainly listen and watch. This is just a beginner's introduction to the topics we're going to dive deeper through the rest of the level, but and levels to come, of course, in regards to our external reality. Like I said before, in videos before, this is sort of just a buffet offering here of different ideas. Nothing I'm saying is meant to be taken as hard fact, opinion, something I'm telling you you have to believe or disbelieve or anything like that. It's just my offering of resources surrounding sort of a general topic containing many, many, many different categories of information um, that help to shape these concepts that I'm bringing forth and hoping to share and get others to think on and explore for themselves, right? I'm not saying that this is a certain way. What I'm trying to do is just give a door to opening, a door or opening, excuse me, to anyone who is interested in seeking more for themselves about what their reality experience is really about. And if you are brand new, then know that this is, 5 levels into energetic systems. And if you are interested in what I'm talking about here, know that I've introduced this field and reality, the external world around us, all the way in level 5 for real reasons. It's so important to start with foundation, to learn your inner workings in your system, your torpedo first, how it works, and get good processing going on your own first before you really work to understand the outer world, because the outer world, of course, is a reflection of our inner world. So if you're brand new, I really suggest jumping down into level 1 and starting there if this kind of stuff interests you. For anybody who's not new and who's been with me, thank you so much for sticking with me through this. This is going to be grabbing at a lot of the structure that we've already gone through and over in levels 2, 3, and 4, and sort of just tying into the truths of how processes work and the functions that we've learned about processes and polarity within systems, right? That using those knowledge points to now assess and observe the external world and see their reflections out there. The biggest thing that I want to really just kick off here with before I share my screen is the openness of mind and understanding that the reality or whatever we are experiencing here is certainly like a multi-level, multi-tiered happenings, versions of things happening. And what I really am going to focus on at the start for beginners and for us is going to be our first person view, the area that each of us as individuals has the capacity to interact with in reality, and how we do that, and what the processes and transactions can occur within that kind of, both in the structure of it and the setup of how it works, but also in the overall processes, the polarity, right? What we are getting out of each exchange. Before we look at the real external reflective out there, before we look at all of the seemingly concrete, seemingly stable, already established industries, systems, and buildings that are all out there already happening, kind of go on without us, right? This sort of external world that just is, that we're birthed into here. I like to call it the matrix overlay, structuring. But there's, you know, there's a million different things to look at when we get out there. I'm not going to jump into out there just yet. We're not going to talk into there yet. Like I started off with the Taurus and stuff. I just want to talk about the individual experiences of reality and how we can learn to observe our reality and learn the truths of our reality through observation instead of taking all of the knowledge points that maybe we've learned out there, been told by others that this is reality, and then using those to watch it and like mark off, oh yeah, my reality does this, I see this, this is happening. Instead of checking against our reality for things we think should be there, I really want us to look back at the truths about how we know things operate and look for those happenings out there and observe them, and then let them tell you the truths of what's happening in your reality, and learning to trust that and go with that, those findings, those knowledge points. I'm sorry, there's something in my eye. Instead of, or more, with more value, more gravity, more weight inside of your own intentions and stuff. Then that list is things that we're checking off from the matrix has given us, right? Or whatever society, whatever kind of implant you want to call the matrix set up here. You know, learning the difference between that external world that has nothing to do with us, each individually, and it has nothing to do with you as the individual. And then learning the direct world and inner world of realities, which really do. You have all the power in the world to do things within your inner world, and you have an extension of capacity of power to reflect that out in your direct world. But the only place that you really have complete power of dominion is within your own universe, within you. But when you work in that way, your inner world is reflected in the outer direct world, and you never will need worry about the systems and interactions and realities that come into your world and into your reality, because they are being called from your inner workings. And if you're aligned with truth in your inner workings, then you're going to call towards you your best and most highest experiences and things for lessons and all that you're here for, within your purpose, within the avenue that you're meant to discover. And so that's sort of my preamble here at the start about, why I'm level 5, why we're looking at reality from this certain perspective, why we're going to look from a very angled view of just the individual to start off with. So if you're really looking for that kind of external reality, talking about the reflective out there, talking about the matrix and the negative overlay, I'll link my series in BitChute that I did some videos on maybe last year. It's kind of fizzled out only because I feel that I'll recircle back to it after the system series again, when I can really dive into it from a more energetic level than what that series has brought to at, which is more of a philosophical, theoretical conversation kind of level about things. But if you are interested in the archons and the takeover, in the negative agenda and all that kind of stuff, I'll have a link to that series down there. You can check that out on BitChute. But here for now, I'm not even going to get into that. Like I said, we're going to start from the first person view and just talk about our reality as a whole and what we're seeing and how we interact with it. And then after that, we'll start to bring in that bigger picture stuff. So I'm going to share my screen now. And I'm going to start off with a couple of pictures that are just visualizations first to get us understanding, right? And a reference point. So familiar frame of reference, of course, like I said, I'm going to be pulling a lot of things out from level 2, 3, and 4. This is another image of a Taurus, right? Many levels. I love this image. I'll put a source to it. I grabbed it off the internet. I did not make this one. I feel like this really has such beautiful references in there to not just the multidimensionality of the Taurus at work, not just the external toroidal, the donut shape cascading out, and the vortex in the middle here, right? Not just that, but it also showcases, I love the 0 point in the middle, where you can really see the fractal unit of God's source, creation, creator consciousness there, the bursting of this, energetic, whatever you want to view that generator. as, nuclear fission, or whatever you want to call things happening in there. This, I just like to call it the 0 point. It's a flipping of current. It's the flipping of positive to negative charge. It's the flipping from inner to outer. It's the direct connect to spirit, to that intangible realm, and layer within all of us. It creates the center channel and the communication tunnel of consciousness. Um, and that is the anchor and cord that connects you to all, connects you to earth, connects you to source, connects you to your higher self, to the plane of existence here. And there's many references to that. Oh, I have my PDF of references I will share as well. Um, in the, I'll put it in a comment, I think, a link to it, just for anybody who wants some more videos, names, books, perhaps on some of the many, many ways that I have come up with these ideas and grab sort of these concepts. I might screen share that reference list at the end, depending on how long I go talking. Um, but yes, the I love the multidimensionality of this image. And you can think, not only is this the human that you could put this in, you could put our entire universe in this scope. You can put your direct world in this template and understand that they all follow the same beautiful structure. And they all, oh, okay. And also the blue, I like the blue out because I feel like this really shows the playscape of reality, and the gold and the yellow geometry in there. This really shows how the solid form, the architecture, the structuring, the bare bones of it that's there. And there's laws and rules that come along with that. And we'll talk more about that a little bit more and a little bit further. But um, the the important big picture role to just remember is that this image here is just, it's a still frame, and it's not the full picture either. It's just one perspective of a certain layer of working happening within the universe. Because yes, we have, like this, we have the structure of the torus, but there's also not just the isness of it, but there's a doing. It does something. Has a purpose at its level of being, right? It does something. And then, there's the third thing, because we have, what it is, its isness, the process is the system as itself, what it's created for, and the work it does. We have what it does outside with others, right? It has its purpose for the whole, its directionality as its own sacred boundary, how it interacts with its external world, right? But then there's also the communication, the transactions that happen between the two, right? There's the changes, there's that lemniscatic flow. So this is sort of trying to incorporate all three of those knowings into one picture. It's a lot, but like I said, it's just a basic frame of reference, sort of hearkening back to the torriedal and understanding that our entire reality scope fits into a structure like this as well. Opening up space and remembering that is the big picture. Um, and also, just to sort of nail that in the coffin, I have the secondary picture that is more classic here to the torriedal with the human in the center. And of course, we've really dived into that in the internal workings already. But I'm reiterating the fact that this structure, the pictures, all of these little knowledge rings, the sacred geometry in there, the circles, all of it has real purpose. All of it is showcasing truths that have been found and discovered and rediscovered over time, and that remain over time. And that's why I feel like it's a strong base to turn and look the external world and know that our external world is a reflection of us, and therefore it will work and will showcase and be observed and can be dissected and understood in the same ways that we can dissect and understand ourselves. So that's that. The next ones that I want to share quickly. is another frame of reference. I have sort of gone over this already. It's another Taurus reference. Um, but just so people could have a bigger visual and just look at it for a moment, especially if you're new and this is you're jumping into my channel right now. This is what I'm talking about perspective and understanding how we look at something, when we're looking at it, from where, and how we choose to see it, by what level of consciousness we can interpret information by, really changes what we're seeing and really allows us to either create commonalities and see parallels if we have the knowledge base and the spectrum large enough to do that. But if we close our spectrum in our view, we don't have the capacity to judge parallels and to see likeness. And we just see difference, difference, difference. That's different. This is different in this way. This is different in that way. So when you look at these versions, this is the Taurus observed from different perspectives. And they all are different categories of information. You can look at, start with the top classic Torito that has the blue and red sort of graph lines that are flowing through it, the magnetic flux and flow there that shows it from more of a physics sense. We have the secondary that shows only the inner vortex that really shows the top and the bottom form, what's happening in the inside of the Torito. We have that third on the top third, which shows the dots with the blue and then some circles um, around it. Concentric, sorry, that's the word I was trying to say, concentric circles around it. And that, if you look down from at the torus, that is what you would see only. And that's the top of the donut shape. Right underneath that in black and white with the dots is another version of that same perspective, but from a different level of conscious understanding, from a more binary, a more black and white understanding. But see how even through black and white, even at a most basic distinctive level of seeing things and interpreting information, you still see the spiraling. You still can sense the motion, the drawing in, right? Even through the linear straight lines, we get the curve. Underneath there, you can see probably obviously a DNA double helix link there. You can see just a doodle of a spiral. You can see the cone type of spiral, and you can see the look down at the spiral. And think of how many different versions and ways that we see these structures happening. This is the truth. This is evolution. This is movement and change. Same thing with the figure eight. I have that beautiful figure eight right there. The lemniscatic flow. That is the key. That is telling us of the infinity, ever-changing motion, perpetual motion. Self-reliant, ever-flowing, cannot be created nor destroyed. Other versions, we have this other beautiful spiral, and then we have more of sacred geometry underneath it, where you can see more of a flower of life sort of representation, but it is the same quality, it is the same message, the same truths. And underneath that, there's more of a cymatic version of it, like a frequency, a wave, right? All of these things are just examples. They're infinite. That's the beauty of it. And it's meant to be. I have the other sort of mind, body, spirit circle there to remind us that there are layers of interpretation and happenings in language, as well as just the visual things that we can see, touch and see and taste and record and observe and measure. There is a spiritual layer to it. There is an energetic layer to it, right? Electromagnetic plasma. There's all three of them happening. And all three of them have their own distinct workings. All three of them work together in very distinct ways and ever-changing ways. But this is, so I'm gonna X out of this sort of version of the torus here and pull up another sort of reference. This is more of a mathematical reference. This is bringing a little bit of math into it and understanding about how these things work together and come together to create sort of this energy bubbles. And the energy bubble is exactly what I'm going to be talking about, sort of our reality bubbles, when I talk about the external world and when I talk about what we get involved in out there, especially from the individual role, because as the individual, we are actively out there incorporating, becoming a part of these little bubbles of reality, offering energy into them, birthing things into life, and setting them free. Uh, or conversely, we are helping to manage and entangle them and become micromanagers and tyrants of things and enslaving things out there and checking and watching. There's two different options of creation, right? And when we go into these things, and when you first start this interaction, when you walk into being committed partner in a system, the energy and intentions you go into it with set the flavor of the whole model and the structure it's allowed to build within. And when we go into these things with a positive service alignment, then we're going to have, we're going to be seeking to maintain a positive surplus of everything. When we go into something with a negative framework, from a debt-based mind, we're going into everything believing it needs something to get started, believing we have to have extra energy to input into it, and that it will always need added to keep going, because it's a debt-based negative drawing in of laws and service. um, that we'll get into more when we talk a little bit more about interaction with reality. For now, I just bring that little tidbit in because I always get sidetracked into shadow work and stuff like that. But this is a basic model for both, either negative or positive working. They're both represented here because it's just a general template. Basically showing what I just talked about. We have the external toroidal happenings, that plus the internal core vortex working, plus the interaction between those happenings creates this whole structuring. It creates polarity. It creates and is the appearance of you, the whole sacred boundary, your circle around your torus, the ultimate boundary of you, is what is created through these three coming together. And what those symbols and structures all mean when we see them. This is what it's representing. Same thing with the triangle and circle coming together into the beautiful star here. Of course, there's many things, and there's a lot of negative overlay raining in of these tools. Don't allow trigger moments of certain tools, shapes, or symbols to pull you into negativity. That's why they corrupt them. That's why they invert them, and they plaster them all over the matrix in certain ways. It's because they, as neutral or positively used, very powerful, very, very powerful. So they don't ever want us to lift the curtain and understand. They want us to only see the negative presentation of them and think that's it. And that, oh, negative, bad, don't touch it ever. But it's not. It's a tool with neutrality, and can be positively oriented and very powerful, very, and lots of momentum can be gained around that when we break free of the enslavement chains of programming. But anyways, to break it down, we have the upwards triangle, the facing down triangle, the circle, and then coming together for the creation. Same thing as masculine, feminine, the conception point, the creation of the whole, coming together to create a new life, family unit. I'll get more into breaking these down into all different ways, but I just want to open up and offer these many different showcasings of the same truths, but from different angles, just so that you can get to see and understand and trust your own truths, to know when you see parallels and commonalities, that's your truth speaking to you, to link things together, to see bigger pictures, to find your truth in them. So that when you zoom back down into first person, you're not fooled by distortions and lies and illusions. That's the whole point. So yeah, I'm going to stop this one here and just blast into the last ones that I'd like to go through. These two next ones are almost the same math that we have with building and coming together, except that they're about structure of the universe. So instead of thinking of the energy toroidal and what I'm talking about with energy processes of the systems, these two screen shares are different versions of that on different um, levels. So this is what I mean. Maybe, sometimes my words are not clear enough and the terms can be vague. But this seems kind of obvious, right? It's the same building up and understanding that there's many levels happening. And that sometimes wherever we're at the present moment, and wherever our conscious capacity is at, we see certain things. And we can only see certain things at certain dimensions, densities, and levels. Even though we can't see other densities, dimensions, levels, they're still there. However, their space is outside of our space. Remember the cone-like spiral? This is where we see from, but they're like concentric circles around us is reflections of other layers and the higher dimensions and densities, sort of like concentric rings that get larger outwards. Like think of a telescope, how it's larger on the outside but smaller down here. Uh, Depending on where you're looking out from, which lenses and layers you're looking through or down into, you have a different availability of different types of dimensions. Sorry, I need my computer charger, I just realized. Available for you to see. And we can understand this truth and start to learn what even that means by understanding between the 2D square, which we are all very familiar with, and the 3D cube. And then we have Platonic solids, which are 5-dimensional. Yeah, I'm kind of skipping forth, but this is just for beginner frame of reference to understand perception. Also, not just perception, the angle we see something physically with, but the angle of perception and availability of knowledge that you have to interpret and understand what you're seeing, right? And that I like to use a great metaphor of sort of like constellations in the sky. You can see the stars out there very well, and they're there every night, and they make some shapes. You can make your own shapes up in your own stories, and you could tell your children those shapes and stories and define it by that in your reality. And that's all it ever is. And that is to you, passed down to your kid. And that's the story of that. And that's the truth of it. However, you can also expand your conscious awareness into your direct world and speak with others, and then see that there's already an established shape up there that's been given and passed down in this sort of external reality. And when you learn that anchor points and those external knowledge points, then your world gets a little larger. Then you can learn and share different stories about what you're seeing, different explanations about what you're seeing. And then there's even further, because there's not just understanding, okay, that's the Big Dipper, that's Orion, that's a Great Bear, whatever the shapes and stories are. But there's also understanding, oh, we could use this to navigate around. Their points of reference here in the 3D to help me move in physicality. It's a whole other sort of perspective and interpretation of the information that's available. And this is what I'm talking about having these different versions of understanding. The square, not only is it a 2D flat representation of a cube, it is also, if you had the perspective of just one side of the cube, you couldn't move and you couldn't get around it, and you just saw the edge of this one square from one side, you're very small, it would just look like that flat square to you. You would never even know that there's 6 other sides, right? same thing when we talk about Platonic solids and building into, um, you know, things that have a lot more depth. There, with all of these corners and the shapes, right? There is a lot more definition there. There's a lot more unique tailor fittedness in there, details added to it. Yet it is still and holds the truth of the square, of the shape, of dimensionality, of numerology and numbers and building. Um, and so yeah, that's basically just opening ourselves up to this ascension of knowledge and ideas, the ascension of perspective, and realizing at any time you could be thinking you're seeing cube, when really you're just seeing the square, right? And not having the ability of the third person view to even get out and understand that it's cube. um, Conversely, you could be over examining things and spending way too long on things that are not necessary. But as we do this work and learn, we sort of know and gauge what's important for us and what isn't for us, for our truths. This is just the same thing, but what I was talking about with information. And I really feel like I'm just going to add this in here for us to understand different quality, um, just out there in reality, in the reality that we experience and we are a part of. There is these three different qualities of information. Information in itself is light and rides on light. Um, and we're going to get into that a little bit more as I get into stuff about the field in my 102. This is like the 101. It's just kind of going to be terminology, references, visuals for people to sort of get a grasp on the basics. And then I think I'll do a 102 video where I'll get more into a little bit of the math of it and stuff. The technicalities, I guess. I don't want to just call it math. Scare people away. I'm not going to be just going into some kind of crazy, like pigeonholed version of math that I think is like the answer to the theory of everything. I'm not like talking in that sort of direct sense. But anyways, stay focused. The ascension of information is exactly the same and is happening all around us in our reality. Our reality is filled with information, knowledge, and wisdom, just like we are full of information, knowledge, and wisdom. And depending on your light body, your capacity, the prism sort of being that you are, the energetic processes that you do, the charge and polarity that you collect, all of these things, there's so many levels of it. But depending on all of that, you have the potentials and capabilities to see these different versions of information out there in your reality, and to go out and get them. Little blips, little inklings, little thoughts, little firings, little sparkles out there, just like you see a little star, just like a sailor at night sees the flicker and knows that's the one I'm following, that's the North Star, that's the one that I'm supposed to be following or not, right? Our experience and our reality, that's a wonderful metaphor for it, I feel. And I'm learning more and more and seeing more and more of that truth. So that's really what I'd like to open up people to and remember and sort of incorporate into their idea of what this reality is full of, these different versions. And you might be presented with, at first, this sketch of the light bulb, this very rough outline of an idea of whatever this thing is that you see at first. And as you learn, as you come back to the sketch, as you look at it more and more and build it, it becomes a knowledge base for you. It becomes something that has a lot more quality and definition to it. Like the picture, you could see the glass of it. You can see the inner workings, the coils. You can see the metal around the bottom, right? It's much more distinct and obvious. It has a lot more time spent on it, right? And finally, wisdom is not only just it turning on the use of it and actually having the light bulb do the work that you intended it to do and see it, but it's also the quality, the change in the appearance of that information. You know, um, there's aliveness to it. There's way more clarity and depth, way more realness to it. And this is much like 3, 4 to 5D. Um, you know, in ourselves, our bodies, humanity, just an individual, is going through an ascension like this, right? From carbon-based sketch in the 3D, into 4D, which is going to be full of knowledge and wisdom from the heart center, really getting into the empathetic fullness of knowledge. And once we really get into the fullness of unconditional love and knowledge, and we start to build systems based on that, and in these more tangible ways, then we'll get into a wisdom stage, and then we'll be ascending into 5D. But it's a work in progress, and I'm only showing this to just give people a bit of leeway on where we're going and how to better see the world around you. Now, I think I'm going to I have these 2 different screen shares left, but I'm not going to actually share one of them just because I've already gone for a bit of a while and I don't want to get too wrapped up into ascension and light work and all of that. Hoping to keep this video kind of like general about the field, about how some points of reference before we really talk more deeply about it. So I'm going to share this one. I have shared this already. We went over it in level 2. And I've used it in different videos as well. But the field in itself, right? The field, helpful to see, made out of something like intelligent ether, coursing through of connection. The world that we experience, 3D reality that we're here in, is not only under the scope of 3 dimensions and physicality and solid form, but there's also motion and movement, directionality as well. We also have time, right? And on this graph, I sort of have time as the Z, but it's important to remember, and I sort of have it showcased at the bottom. This is really why I brought this up, these 2 little visuals here, to kind of talk about what I'm working to explain better, and what hopefully in the 102 video, when I have these a little bit bigger graphics to explain the plane and the collection of our realities, the solidity and forming of it. But the Z is really to try to create a third 3D kind of understanding in this two-dimensional graph, the standard X and Y. When we think about, obviously, the world around us, we are in 3 dimensions, so using a 2D graph can get a little confusing. But I have those sort of 3D circles at the bottom to show us and understand that there is depth to it, and that there's also positive and negative potentials for building and for accumulating energy in this plane. The points I'd like to make really quickly, just before I close out here. I'm not going to go over everything that I put on that infographic. I've shared it a couple of times, and if you wanted, I'll probably share it again, but it's available on my YouTube or Telegram channels, definitely. But I offer this, like I said, for these visuals to understand the reality bubbles that we are as ourselves and that we are a part of as we go out into our real world, right? Those spaces, if we could start to understand that the mechanisms that work within them are a bit like a kaleidoscope, in that they distort and reflect based on what we have chosen to see through um, our experience in reality. And that if we wish to change what we're seeing, we don't just change where we're looking at, we have to change what we're looking through, right? And that starts with the inner work of the inner world. The other thing is that not only is it like a kaleidoscope, ever changing, fractally moving, reflections and mirrors and echoes, you know, there is this like accordion thing happening, whether you like to see it as the blinking, the pulsating, the blip of the universe, the shortest second ever that could ever be measured, whatever you want to look at that fragmentation of experience as. I really like to see it as an accordion, and seeing, like I have shown this, the plane sort of, it coming in and coming out and coming in and coming out. And every time it does that, it assesses, oh, maybe it's in this book. It assesses the median and creates it again. And these drawings are terrible in themselves, and you can probably not even see them because my light is there. I'll try to scan them or take a picture with my phone, because it's getting a little late. I need to get off this. But to understand that there's many things that are happening on the large scope of reality out there that control the bigger picture, that we don't really need to work and worry about. And that's why I really am just sort of introducing these kind of things, just to have tight, loose little tie-ons for us to create a general sense of a shape, not to dive into it crazily, just to have the information. We're not trying to get into wisdom here. I'm just building a shape of information for us, right? To explore within. Because, like I've given this explanation many times, I'm going to end with this. As we're talking about this external reality of the whole and whatever goes on out there and whatever that is, I see our limited capacity as our first person view as humans. It's not within our role to know that. It's outside our total understanding of how we could even grasp and do that. It's nice to know that there is something out there and have faith in that, but we shouldn't loop ourselves into trying to ever understand what that really is all about, because it's not our time. It's not our designated role to understand that. And in fact, we really can't. And so I just am giving these, like I said, as a frame of reference points. We are, in my opinion, something like individual cells. How many cells make up your body, right? The whole of the universe is a bit like the whole of the universe of you. And like, I have an everyday, I have to go homeschool my children. I have things I need to do all day. I have the presentation of Allie that I am. That doesn't impact or have anything to do with a single cell beating in my heart right now, right? But that single cell beating in my heart right now is a super important job. Love it. Love that it has the individual capacity to do work at its conscious level and to be a part of systems at its own conscious level down there, and to do good work for me, because they are offering service to the whole, which is me. I trust in that. I'm not going to try to get down in there and wonder what's going on with my heart. And same thing to say that a single cell bursting in my heart isn't disrupting the whole of the organ system of the heart either, because the system of the heart at its larger organ level is still, again, much different than down at the cellular level, right? There's different layers of capacity with different available impact to be made on a conscious level. Not that it doesn't impact the whole, but at the same time, it doesn't. And so our individual lives are like the cell living its individual life. And as the cell, is it a good use of my time to be wondering what the whole body of Ali out there could be possibly doing? Not really, because it's I have work to do as a heart cell that my day is taken up by doing X, Y, and Z of the cellular process that I'm in charge of doing in my real world. And the way that I serve Ali as the whole, the way that I know and do the best for that whole and be a part of that whole as I'm designed to do is to do the cellular work at the level that cell's meant to do. Um, and so I am trying to just briefly outline the whole of the universe without diving out there, without really going out there and trying to build out there, say what's the whole thing about it. I just want us all to know that there is an outline that we are held within. And then we can start to, like I said, use this information to gauge and witness and observe the actual reality we're a part of, and to use those truths and knowings to better serve our reality and to have better experiences within the capacity that our consciousness at the present moment is divinely designed to be a part of. And so, yeah, that the reality around us seems and does reflect out our inner worlds. And if you've been with me through the whole series, then I'm sure you have done some of the work already and seen some of those symptomatic repercussions, right? Confirmation, external validation that is real. If not, open yourself up to it, ask for it, leave wiggle room for the universe to interact with you, and go into your life as a co-creation with your mind, body, and spirit, with all of these layers, and acknowledging and accepting that the world around you is made up of those layers as well. And instead of telling them what they should be, or how they can appear, instead just work to listen and observe, and they will show themselves to you. So yes, I think I've kind of gone around about refresh about what the energetic reality is and where our own level of perspective really starts at. So I'm going to wrap it up here and just stop sharing my screen. And I'd love to hear if anybody has questions or references. If anyone like certain things or would like to hear different things, love to hear it. You can leave comments, send me emails. My email is always in the description. You can always find more things at amariespeaks.com as well. I have huge tools and references, all free on there, whole bunch of categories, including metaphysics stuff. Oh, and I will share that description, that PDF, but maybe quickly here, I'll just share that. Oh, I don't have it up. Never mind. I don't have it available to share. I guess I could share my desktop real quick. Let's see what the Harmonics. If I could find which one it is. Oh no, of course Zoom blocks the. There it is. So this is sort of just a brief beginners thing, and like I said, I'll try to share this in the comments. I think I could put a PDF there. But EA quantum gravity research, super cool. Nassim Harriem is really interesting. Rupert Sheldrake, I love what he talks about with consciousness. A great book in reference, Autobiography of a Yogi, that has a lot of stuff to do with sort of the universal theories, a bunch of metaphysical concepts here, all types of stuff I talked about with sacred geometry and Platonic solids, Plato, Pythagoras, all the classics, the mystery schools and the esoteric learning over time, DiVinci and Tesla. Buckminster Fuller is one of my favorite New Age guys. Along with Jane 108 and Robert Edward Grant. He is amazing with mathematical things. The links are awesome. Like I said, hopefully I can share it in the comments, and then everybody can get them to different videos and stuff. Spoken word and sounds. We'll get into stuff like that about how we speak things into reality, and about, of course, all the ancient knowledge about sounds and the word and how important it is. Also things about classic composers and how we tune instruments. 440 versus 432 is really interesting. It's totally shaped my understanding of frequencies and about the reality we're within and about the matrix overlay and how they uh, blare out things through their loudspeakers. Um, Seven Bomar is really cool. Uh, he's got a whole social thing. He's got websites and a whole crew behind him of doing really cool learning and lots of cool things on a multitude of levels. But I like this talk he does on etymology. This one's like 10 years old, maybe, but it's really cool. Etymology is all about the study of words, obviously. Um, Things on water. Water, we're going to get into huge because what are we but water mostly? Because everything needs water, everything runs off of water. Water is a huge part of our reality and it's conscious. It's so amazing. If you haven't looked into things about water, Dr. Emoto, Beta Austin, Victor Schauberger are three of my favorite go-to people who I consider mentors of mine that I've really gone through quite a bit in their own offerings, who I would suggest. But there's others. There's many, many, many others, and I obviously haven't selected my learning just to them. But this list is a brief thing I came up with off the top of my head and went and grabbed some saved videos that I knew I had around quickly for this. Maybe I'll expand on it even. Light, basic academia learning about light spectrums is really helpful as gauging information, not as saying and checking off these names and um, published sort of puppets of of the media-driven academia world. But just for frame of knowledge and also to notice and see what the distortions are within those as well. But having those basics that are offered out, the general points, are important. So if that interests you, that's a great link to sort of knowledge learning. Other things that I really like, the Book of Law, the Law of One, I talk about that all the time, and they talk a lot about information as light and light from the sun and what that is. Dr. Ott is really cool. He does a lot about plants and the light spectrum, and also, well, humans incorporating into that as well. But and Walter Russell is amazing. Other things to do with ether, the resonance and cymatics, I had thought about Faraday, Schumann, the Rodin coil, bificular coils, Orgon, William Reich, he's really cool. Cliff High, I'm skipping down to magnets and electromagnetism and stuff. Cliff High, I really like a lot of things he has to say on the scientific realm. He gets into some alien stuff too, which if that's interesting to you, you might like to hear what he has to say about that kind of thing. Not my slice of cake so much, but I do listen to it and have it as a frame of reference. Same thing with Theoria Apophis, or whatever his name is. I appreciate a lot of things he says. Sometimes I don't appreciate the actual character and attitude, but a lot of the things that he brings forth are amazing and really worth learning. Scalar waves obviously are cool. Like I said, I just kind of blasted through this. I really did need to put on there too. I can't think of his name right now. I'll come back to it later. Like I said, I'll expand on this list later. But now, wow, I've gone for way too long. I have to get off. Thank you so much for listening and hearing what I have to say briefly in this introduction, this 101 walkthrough on some general terminology and perspectives on what possibly the field of reality around us could be, and the tools we can use, right, to look at it and observe, not to really say what it could be or tell everybody this is what you should see, but just to offer out tools of examination for people to do their own exploration to really see what they see. So thank you so much for listening to me. I hope you'll join me next time. Like I said, I'll do a more in-depth 102 when I can fit it in, and when I can also finish up the infographics that I've been putting together to show better visualizations of the full scope of it, incorporating all the layers of mind, body, and spirit into the experience of reality around us. So yeah, I hope to have that done shortly, but in the interim, you can always check out my website for tons of other information. Follow me on Telegram if you use that app to keep up to date with the things that I'm doing. Or just tune back to my channel. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you next time.